Welcome to the Patriotic Pulpit. What we have going on in Washington, D.C. right now is a conspiracy against the American people. It involves, of course, Joe Biden's cognitive decline. But it also involves the gigantic cover-up that is done by the Democratic Party, the Democratic National Committee, Joe Biden's staff. It involves the media. It involves Hollywood, all the liberals who have been siding with Joe Biden for so long, a giant conspiracy against the American people in order to cram us into a socialistic Marxist hole. And the thing is that they've almost come to the Marxist conclusion in this country. And since they're almost at that conclusion, they become very, very angry about it, covering up and pushing Marxism because they have Joe Biden now in office. Doesn't matter if he's cognitively able or not, because what's happening is that he's been cognitively declining for a long time, and they knew it. They've always known it. But now the American people know it, and so the massive cover-up is now also being exposed. Not only is Joe Biden exposed as one who is in cognitive decline, and he was when he ran the last time, but also what is exposed is the American left, the Marxist left, who are trying to cover their tracks. Now, just as illustrative of this, I saw on the television this morning, for example, an interviewer from Fox News tracking down different congresswomen and congressmen in the halls of Congress, representatives, and one was Pramila Jayapal, who is a representative from Seattle, Washington, and you know right there that she's going to have some cognitive problems herself, not necessarily physical problems, but they have so blinded themselves by their worldview, they cannot think correctly, they cannot discuss openly, and she is a perfect illustration of how the Democrat leadership in our country cannot think clearly, they cannot debate clearly, they cannot offer any real suggestions, they can't answer even questions. So here's what had happened. The interviewer was going down the hall, and Pramila Jayapal, they asked her, well, is President Biden in cognitive decline, and what do you think about it? She couldn't even answer the question. She simply said, well, President Trump was in cognitive decline for 4 years, and she jettisoned into her office. Now, that just shows you the Democrats can't think. They can't debate, they can't discuss, they can't openly, honestly discuss anything. They cannot be honest with themselves, let alone with the American people. How in the world can we trust a government to the Democrat Marxist Party in this country when that kind of thinking is dominant? When they are asked open, simple questions, here's a question: is Joe Biden in cognitive decline? And all they want to do, because this is how they reflex, the reflexive motion is, well, President Trump's this way. Well, how about the Republicans? And they can't even think correctly. They just attack. And so that's exactly an illustration of what's going on in Washington, D.C. with the Democratic Party. I want to tell you a story from the Bible because it relates to Joe Biden being propped up. And this is from 1 Kings chapter 22. Now, Ahab was the wicked king in the northern kingdom of Israel. The kingdom had divided, the southern kingdom, the northern kingdom. And the northern king, Ahab, who's going to be representing Joe Biden in this story, he wants to go to war with Syria, Ben-Hadad, the king of the Syrians. And he wants to go to war, so he brings Jehoshaphat, the king of the south, and that would be like some of the Republicans who are just, they want to get along and want to have bipartisan support. So Ahab wanted bipartisanship. Doesn't that make you sick? Because Jehoshaphat was doing wrong by assisting one who hated God, who was in opposition to God. But that's what many Republicans want to do. They want to have bipartisanship along with the socialist Marxist in our country. Why do that? Well, Ahab calls Jehoshaphat in, but then Jehoshaphat asked if, before they go to war with the king of Syria, if they might ask some of the prophets. And so Ahab calls in his dervishes, that is, he has 400 prophets that are paid for out of his own treasury, who come in and they all run around talking about, well, the Spirit has guided them to say that Ahab is going to be successful in this battle and he will surely prevail. One of them, Zedekiah, son of Kenana, had put horns on his head and enacted it. Here's what we're going to do to the Syrians. Jehoshaphat was suspicious because sometimes unanimity is not a good thing. And so he said, is there not here a prophet of God besides? Ahab said, yeah, there's a prophet of God, but I hate him. His name is Micaiah. The reason I hate him is because he tells always negative things about me. Sounds like conservative talk show hosts, conservatives in Congress, talking about negative. Well, we want to have something positive. Well, what's the positive to say about not only a man who is in cognitive decline, but also has driven this country right into the ground, erasing our borders, destroying our monetary system, engaging us in a world government? Well, they call Micaiah. Ahab says, yeah, there's Micaiah. So they call Micaiah, and Micaiah says, you know what? At first he tells Ahab, he said, yeah, go up, you'll prevail, you'll do fine. Ahab knew he was mocking him. He said, how many times have I adjured you to tell me nothing but truth in the name of the Lord? Micaiah said, I'll tell you what, the Lord has spoken to me, and here's the message. You're going to go into battle, and you're going to die in battle. You're not going to come home. Ahab said, well, didn't I tell you, Jehoshaphat, that he would always say negative things about me? Now, here's what happened. Ahab goes into battle, and a Syrian, just a normal soldier, at will, just at random, draws his arrow, draws his bow, shoots the arrow, and it strikes Ahab between the joints in the arm. Ahab had disguised himself as a regular soldier, thinking, well, maybe I better just not act like the king. I don't want them to chase the king's chariot. But the arrow struck him between the joints in the armor, and it began to bleed out. His staff knew it. But what did they do? They propped him up physically in the chariot so that the rest of the army might be able to see him. Ahab wanted to get out of the battle. He asked the chariot driver to turn his hand and get out of this battle, but providentially, God made it so thick that he was dying as he was on the battlefield. But they propped him up in the chariot in order that they might continue the battle. Finally, they were defeated, and Ahab crumples in the chariot dead. Now, I'm not saying that Joe Biden is dying. Of course, we're all dying, but he's not dying radically like that. But what's happening is his staff, the Democratic National Committee, the Democrats in Congress, mainstream media, Hollywood elite. The Hollywood elite. We have Julia Roberts taking pictures with Biden. And then you have George Clooney writing an article. Why didn't they say anything a long time ago? They didn't say anything. They knew he was in cognitive decline because they want power. And they propped him up in the chariot so that he might stand up. But what happened? All of the American people saw it. They saw it clearly, and all of a sudden, well, we've got to have someone different in here. They would, if that debate had not taken place, you can bet your bottom dollar that George Clooney's of the world would have wanted Joe Biden to continue in office. Why? Because they have power. Because it's not Joe Biden running things. It's the Barack Obamas, the George Soroses, and all the machinery of the Democratic Party, the Marxist of America. They're running this party. This is a conspiracy against the American people. Now, I know the word conspiracy makes everybody shake because the Democrats, the liberals, the left, those who are involved in this conspiracy always chide the right by saying, you're a conspiracy theorist. You believe in conspiracies. Well, there have been many conspiracies that have been very successful. How about the assassination of John Kennedy? You know, you can't even talk about John Kennedy, and everybody's left and right talking about, wow, what a conspiracy. And the media, however, has stigmatized the conspiracy theory, conspiracy theorists. But in reality, there have been a lot of conspiracies, and they've been very, very successful. And the leaders of this conspiracy to prop Joe Biden up in the chariot while he's bleeding to death, so to speak, is the White House, the bureaucratic machine, Democratic National Committee, mainstream media, Hollywood. And yet, because they have been so propping him up, a man who can't even do the job, one of his staffers said he's only available from 10 to 4 because he doesn't get up in time. And I thought, let me just say this. I thought I'm going to mention John Kirby here in a moment. John Kirby, the White House National Security Communications Advisor, Monday said, the president is robust. That's the word they use, robust. He told reporters Biden sometimes takes probing questions, and he asked probing questions during meetings. And he said this is his quote, "In my experience, the last 2.5 years, I've not seen any reason whatsoever to question or to doubt his lucidity, his grasp of context, his probing nature, and the degree to which he's completely in charge of facts and figures." Well, of course, that is a bald-faced lie. Everybody saw it. And what happened on the debate stage a couple of weeks ago, we've already reviewed the debate on this podcast, but what happened was not simply a bad night. This was Joe Biden in real time. This is what's happening with Joe Biden, and everybody sees it. And yet, John Kirby came out and said, well, for example, he can take calls at 2 a.m. in the morning. Really? Well, you know what? I might be able to call the nursing home and arouse my family member at 2 a.m. in the morning also. I might go up there if they let me go in and visit and arouse them at 2 a.m. That's not the issue. The issue is not whether they can take calls and whether you can arouse them from their sleep. The issue, John Kirby, is what kind of state of mind is he in at 2 a.m.? And we know very well his state of mind is declining so badly that he doesn't even need to be president, but they've got to keep him in there. And here's Jill Biden, his wife. She says it's ridiculous for politicians over the age of 75 to take cognitive exams. This is so stupid. It's so ridiculous. It's just irritating that the Democrats want to prop him up in the chariot here, so to speak, knowing very well he can't do anything. And, well, you know what? It's not mandatory that he should have to take a cognitive test. Well, you know what? That might be the case for people who are lucid and who are actually, everybody can see that they're on the ball. But Jill Biden, it's a power. This is all about power. How about Representative Jasmine Crockett, Democrat from Texas, noted that Biden trailed other Democratic candidates during the 2020 primary, but she said, well, he can do this if we focus on the real threat, Project 2025, Donald Trump and MAGA. So there you go again. Just exactly like we opened up regarding Pramila Jayapal. They can't do anything. They can't talk about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. They have to deflect it onto Donald Trump. We've got to worry about Donald Trump, and they've got to keep that machine alive. That's Jasmine Crockett from Texas. Here's Representative Mike Quigley, a Democrat from Illinois. Now, they had a session in which the Democrats got together and said, what are we going to do about this? The American people can see it. The emperor now has no clothes, and everybody can see he's naked. So he left the session because they're saying, what are we going to do about it? And he says, well, I'm concerned about his ability to run again and serve out another 4-year term. But he will bring the ticket down this time, Quigley said. You know what? Quigley, everybody knew that. Everybody knew that a long time ago. And that's exactly what we knew in 2020. But he was able to run from his basement. Remember that? He didn't have to get out to campaign. He didn't have to get out and debate. He didn't have to do anything publicly at all, hardly. Just stay in the basement and run. He'll bring the ticket down. Well, yeah, he'll bring the ticket down, and that's exactly what's going to happen. AOC, of course, obviously. What does she do? Stupidly, she defends him. How is it that you have people who are leading this country who are so stupid, lacking honesty? I don't know if it's stupidity, it's just lacking honesty with themselves and with the American people, and can look right in the camera and say, I defend him and I'll support him as president. Tim Kaine, or Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat leader in the House, said he still supports Biden as the nominee. Now, that was just a couple of days ago, but things radically change as they put the pressure on them. You know, I remember reading this about Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was a man who watched the polls. That is, he would put his finger up. Which way is the political wind blowing? That's the way I'm going to go. And so that's why he, of course, tried to cut the budget and so forth. Not because he was interested in doing that, but because, and he worked with Newt Gingrich, but not because he was really committed to that, because he saw the political winds blowing that direction. And this is Hakeem Jeffries. He's saying, well, I'll support Biden, but you know what? As more and more Democrats jump on board saying he's got to go, Hakeem Jeffries is going to crumple also. What does it tell you? It should tell you that the Democrats are not principled people at all. They're not principled. They don't have any principles and honesty with themselves and with others. I said stupidity earlier. It's probably not stupidity. It's just lack of integrity. Senator Tim Kaine, Democrat from Virginia, said he had never had a reason to question Joe Biden's ability to be a patriot, put the country first. I'm sure he'll make the decision that does that. And he added, that decision is going to be one that I'm going to support. Whatever he does, I'm going to support it. Crazy, isn't it? How about Kamala Harris? She said, President Biden is a fighter. He forcefully attacks former President Trump during a campaign rally in Nevada, and some Democrats have called for Biden to step aside, but he's a fighter. Well, so what? A lot of people in wheelchairs are fighters. I know a lot of older people on walkers that are also fighters. That doesn't mean that he's able to do the job. And then the Wall Street Journal published this, said the progressives and Congressional Black Caucus members are among the loudest voices defending the president. That shows you their lack of integrity. These people, the Congressional Black Caucus, they ought not to be in Congress, apparently. This is what's happening. And it is lack of integrity is what's going on here. But the real problems are not Joe Biden's cognitive decline. The real problems are, and it shows it clearly, we are run by a shadow government, not run by we the people at all. The bureaucratic machine is driving us into the ground, just like the staff of King Ahab continued to prop him up in the chariot. And the real problem with King Ahab was his policy making. His policies were the problem, and exactly so. Not simply that he was dying in the chariot. Same thing regarding Joe Biden. It's his policies. Inflation is absolutely the highest it's ever been in my lifetime, except from, Jimmy Carter. He had another one, but that was the same thing. Spend, print money, and then inflation goes out the roof. And then how about the border? How can anyone vote for a man destroying the American borders, because it's a destruction and a purposeful destruction of America? Erasing our borders. It's not simply about all the people that are being murdered by the people coming across the border, the illegals that are here, which is a major concern. But it is absolutely the deterioration of a culture in which people are informed citizens to vote. We have so many people coming across now, they're not informed on anything except they get a free check from Joe Biden and a free telephone at that. He's destroying our country. That ought to be alone enough to vote him out of office. And how about his disastrous pullout in Afghanistan? I believe that was treasonous. How about the dictatorial Green Agenda signing on to the United Nations Green Agenda? You talk about people who want to be king. I saw a Facebook post the other day, and it depicted Trump as wanting to be king. Well, I'll tell you what a kingship is. It's circumventing the Congress, which he's already done on the border, because Congress, we the people through Congress have already passed laws saying, here's the law on the border. He has unilaterally destroyed that, ignored it, trampled it, used it as birdcage liner instead. And the same thing regarding the Green Agenda. The Green Agenda signing on, for example, to the Paris Accord, which is really a socialistic Marxist way to drain the American people of all the monies we have and send it overseas to a developing nation such as China, which is developing. And how about foreign policies continuing to take money from the American people to support foreign wars? Everywhere in the world, support foreign wars. Absolutely. Joe Biden's policies are what's really, really driving this country into the ground, even though his staff has propped him up, just like the staff of King Ahab propped him up in the chariot. His staff has propped him up, but now everybody sees what's going on. He's bleeding out, or use another figure, the emperor has no clothes.